You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
He's got it! Oh, baby!
Every week, Travis Currah.
That's Grey Cup me, which is a different person.
And Brazilian Tide.
Hunters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Oh, nearly intercepted and it's over!
Ready, set, hunt!
And thanks for pressing play on this episode of the Two and Out CFL podcast. I'm Travis Currah, and joining me today is CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. Randy, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Great to be with you, Travis.
Now, we are about a week removed from the 2023 edition of Touchdown Atlantic. How would you rate this year's event in Halifax?
Yeah, I think by every measure, it was a spectacular success. We received an incredibly warm welcome from the region, from, the citizens of Halifax. St. Mary's did a beautiful job, helping us set up their campus and showcasing St. Mary's, which was great. Again, I could go on, but pretty much everything about the event was spectacular. So we came home very pleased.
I mean, props to everybody for making the event happen. We know what the province of Nova Scotia has gone through since May. It's been a lot going on there. It has been rough, but now the conversation is renewed. The 10th team. Where are we at now? It seems like there's a new sense of optimism across Canada and in Halifax or the Maritimes for making this happen.
Well, Travis, the optimism, I believe, is well deserved and well earned. The fact of the matter is, and I could find a lot of colorful ways to describe this, but we have moved the ball down. There's been a lot of first downs, and I do think we're either in or closing in on the red zone. But if both of us know this, and all of your listeners know this, if you're down by 6 and you got a minute left to go in the game, and you're in the red zone is really nice, but it doesn't matter unless and until you actually score. And we've got lots of reasons to feel good. We've certainly made a lot of very strong contacts in the region. There are definite signs of interest in owning a franchise. Some really strong potential partners for the league are there. The conversations around the potential for a stadium are certainly there, but not done. So we just have to, we came home this week, caught our breath for, 30 seconds, and now we've started those conversations all over again. So we are going to push hard, and we're going to push as hard as we can until we get to, kind of mid to late fall. And then we'll have to see, whether or not it looks like this is a real opportunity in Atlantic Canada. And if it is, we'll keep pushing. But if it's not, we are going to turn our focus to other communities. And, frankly, I'm very excited about the potential for expansion in Quebec. Quebec is a strong province for football, a great football community. And Quebec City could be a tremendous place for CFL football. So, again, we really like what's happening in Halifax. We've got lots of reasons to feel good about expansion there. But at some point, you have to be able to say, it's just maybe not the time to make it happen. And you have to, as they say, it's an East Coast, I think it's aligned with East Coast characteristics. You have to fish or cut bait. And I'm hoping it's going to be fish.
Yeah. So say by this fall, it doesn't look like things are going to happen in Atlantic Canada. Would more neutral site games be on the horizon to maybe test the waters in a Quebec City or other communities like that?
Well, we have started those conversations. Interestingly enough, there are communities who have put up their hand and asked us if we would consider bringing our touchdown product to their community. And so the answer is yes. We have right now 3 different communities that there are various stages of conversation with them about the potential for a touchdown game. So First of all, it's really good for us. It's really good to expand our markets. It's really good to showcase our game in other communities. And Canada is changing. The size of some of what used to be smaller communities, they're not so small anymore, and they're growing, and their profile is changing. So for us, it's helping to open potential new opportunities. So Travis, the truth is, when the phone rings and communities call and are interested in touchdown, we're having those conversations because it's the right thing to do. And it doesn't take away from our conviction that Halifax would be a great place for a CFL team. But as I said, at some point you have to say, okay, maybe if this isn't the time it's going to happen, then we're going to take our show on the road and see if we can open doors in other communities. Nothing negative, nothing hostile, nothing forever. But at some point you have to say it's either, maybe it's not the right time. But again, we're optimistic. We think it could happen this time. Lots of really great people are involved in that conversation, which is the most encouraging sign of all.
There are a lot of positives to having a 10th team. Scheduling for 10 is, I'd say, a whole lot easier than scheduling for 9. But I have heard from a few football fans, or would-be Schooner fans, if you will, in the Maritimes, that just talk about the challenge of being a sports fan or a CFL fan in the Atlantic time zone. Time zones across Canada, we had a little bit of a mix-up today, even with that. Now, they have said that some of these games, by the time they're halftime, it's after midnight. So it's tough to do that. That must present its own set of challenges when trying to accommodate a team in Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, I would agree with a caveat. One of the things that I have been exceptionally pleased with is the different approach we have taken to scheduling games now. First of all, a much greater collaboration with our management council, with our team presidents. We went through several sessions with them last year, really looked at how do we open up new potential opportunities. So, for example, adding the Sunday game to our summer lineup has really been very positive. And that has allowed us to think about, putting those games on a Sunday afternoon in the West, for example, in the Eastern time zone. And, a 4:00. So, 2 weeks ago, we were in BC. We had a 4:00 Pacific time, 7:00 Eastern. That would be 8:00. That'd be 8:00 Atlantic time. That could work. So, one of the things I have a tremendous confidence in is the ability for this league to collaborate with each other. The president the management council, I think, is a high functioning group. I'm certainly honored to work with our team presidents. And there's a real willingness to be creative there. So, I'm not going to look at time zone being an overwhelming obstacle, because I have so much confidence in our president's ability to think our way around creative solutions.
Now, there's a lot of moving pieces in a schedule: stadium availability, the odd number of teams, the 3 bye weeks. I don't envy the person that has to put that together every year. Although there have been a couple times this season where a team coming off the bye is hosting a team on the Thursday that has to, when we saw it with BC and Winnipeg, a first place showdown. And hey, props to Winnipeg for what they did Thursday night, but it wasn't the same BC Lions, and some people do attribute that to the schedule. Will that be a consideration going forward to try to limit the short week against the team off the bye?
Yeah, well, Travis, I can say this. Look, we try to the best of our ability, and the people that do this work so hard to make sure that the schedule is as fair as it can be. But in the end, scheduling is very challenging. And here's what we have. If you want to be heartened, misery loves company. You talk to any of the leagues and they'll tell you they have arguments inside their leagues about scheduling and who got a better deal or a worse deal. One of the challenges we faced is that we don't have ownership of a lot of the facilities we play in. So, we don't have access to every date that we would like. That creates limitations on the opportunity for scheduling. So again, Travis, I listen to it all. I hear
Mhm.
it all. I would never want a fan to think that we don't care when the schedule. If there's a schedule that looks a little unfair, I can promise you this: by the time we publish the schedule, we have done everything humanly possible to try to make the schedule as fair and equitable as it possibly can be. And then there are just some situations that you can't fix for, and in the end, we have to put a schedule out, and we know this: we like everybody to be just a little bit unhappy. And if we I mean, that's the reality, Travis. We try to we use this measure. We say, is everybody just a little bit unhappy? And if they are, then we know we've done a pretty good job.
I guess that's the same for officiating. If both teams are a little bit upset,
Yeah, no,
it's fair.
Yeah. It's funny, Travis, interesting talking about officiating. And, I think our crews do an amazing job. And I believe in the moment, there's always that instinct to think, well, our officials are the ones that make mistakes. I've had a habit of keeping a collection of articles relating to all the sports whenever there is a controversy around officiating. And from time to time, I go into that file and I read it. And I just remind myself that, there are upset fans and upset teams in every pro sports league on the planet, as it relates to, perhaps not getting the calls, or the calls not going their way. So again, I believe our crews do a remarkable job, and it's a tough game. It's a tough game to officiate. You got these gigantic human beings and these incredibly athletic receivers, and they're all going at warp speed. And you're trying to figure out, in the midst of all of that chaos, you're trying to make the right call. And I'm, as they say, I'm exceptionally proud of the work that our officiating crews do. And I'm really, really proud of Darren Hackwood, our head of officiating. I think Travis, if there's one thing he's done, and with support from Greg Dick, is they're far more open to acknowledging when they've made a mistake. So that every week a report goes out to our teams, and it highlights areas where there have been mistakes made. And that atmosphere of mea culpa, creating that environment where we are honest with our teams when we have made a mistake, I think has really created it's created a culture of trust. Not perfect, but it's created a culture of trust. So, again, it's one area of our game we'll never get 100% right, but I believe our crews do a remarkable job.
The consistent games on the weekend this season, with the 5 Mountain, 7 Eastern on Saturday and Sunday, seem to have resulted in some pretty nice ratings for the Canadian Football League on television. That must be making you feel pretty good at this point.
Yeah, it has been. Look, our TV ratings have gone up every week since week one. What's been incredibly exciting is that our 25 to 54 demo is up almost 26% year over year. That's the demo that the sponsors and the advertisers look for and they love. So that's a huge success for us this year. But, going back to the schedule, I think all the credit, literally all the credit, goes to our presidents. And when we entered into a dialogue with them about scheduling, they threw in front of us some very interesting ideas, and they were willing to try some new things. The Sunday concept, as an example, they were willing to try that. And again, credit to a group of professionals who really want to move the league forward and are thinking creatively about potential solutions. So I think, yes, hey, ratings and scheduling and officiating, and I could go on and on, are just a handful of the many reasons why we're really excited about what's happening this year in the CFL.
Now, I do have to ask you, it's been a big conversation point among CFL fans and would-be fans, or people that want to engage with the game. The new stat system that was to be put into place, obviously probably hoping for week one or even the preseason. That has to be probably a disappointing area with you. What has gone on there? Are we getting close to having a full stat system for the CFL?
Yeah, well, Travis, just yesterday we had a meeting with the chief operating officer from Genius, a really, really strong partner of ours. And, we expressed our disappointment. We had a really honest and forthright discussion about where we are. The truth is, it has been frustrating, and there's been more than a few times I've gone home having kicked my desk. But I remind myself, they are committed to making sure that we get this fixed as quickly as we can, and that's what came out of yesterday's conversation. No equivocation, no excuses, just how do we get this done as quickly as we can. The other side of this is exactly what we needed to do. We need to reach into the future. This platform that we have now put ourselves on is about the future. It's about all the things that our fans have asked us for. How do we create more opportunities to engage more fans? And that means new technologies. And whenever you're talking about new technologies and you're going from an older system that had some limitations to a big system that has open doors and open windows and tremendous capacity for us to grow into. It's about connecting it to our broadcast augmentation ambitions. It's about creating ways for young fans to be super engaged, because our stats are not just numbers, but they have the capacity to really engage a young fan with exciting new ways of thinking about the game. It's about chipping our football and then using that chip football to give our fans information about the game that they'd never seen before. In order to get to that, we had to take a big, bold step. And I know, frankly, Travis, there's some good arguments for, well, we could have just waited, another year or two and stayed on the old platform. But how do you make the big change if you're stuck in the old world? And, again, this will be a conversation we'll have with our governors, as I think we are accustomed to do now. We do have good and thorough and honest debriefing sessions where we look at, decisions we've made. I know there'll be some fair and let's say pointed feedback as it relates to this particular element, but this was a change made to make sure we are hitting that future opportunity head on. And one of the things I am heartened by when I travel the country and I spend a lot of time in CFL cities visiting with CFL fans, they want this league to reach its full potential. They really do. And you're smiling because I know that's true.
Yeah.
And in order for me and for my colleagues to deliver that, we have to take some chances. We have to be bold. We have to look way into the future and not play from behind, but play ahead. And that, Trevor, takes making some changes that are not always easily implemented. And so again, to any fan who has been inconvenienced by this year's stats rollout, I'm not going to be glib and not diminish their frustration. But I would say to that same fan, I'll bet you they're the same fan that wants to see this league climb new mountains and conquer new challenges. And for them, I would say this platform will help us to do that. And therefore, it's been worth some of the short-term pain to get to a lot of long-term gain.
A chipped football makes me think about maybe having the exact number on a velocity of a football thrown down the field by Zach Collaros, or the exact speed of Mario Alford returning one to the house. I think that presents some pretty cool opportunities. With this new stat system and with the partnership with Genius Sports, and you talk about the ratings being up with that 25 to 54 demographic, what other things will be able to engage that key demographic and maybe even some new Canadians to get interested in the CFL, engaged in the CFL, and obviously in the stands and enjoying our great game?
Yeah. So, again, that fan engagement strategy is exactly what Genius, that's, at the heart of our relationship with them. That's what it is. It's about all the various tools, and it's the the various free-to-play games. It's all of how you connect your system to these ways of getting somebody to come in, maybe not the traditional way, maybe they come in a different way, but get them interested in the game. So what it is, it's about looking at multiple ways of creating interest amongst new fans. But you have to connect that to a system that has that kind of long-term potential, because otherwise you're just beating up the same old system, trying to get, it's like trying to get Randy Ambrosie, offensive lineman, to play wideout. It's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I personally thought it was a great idea back in the day, but it's not an unfair equivalent. No matter how hard you try, you can't take me and turn me into something I'm not. In the case of this platform, it has all of those capabilities that we can then target different demographics and say, what would they be interested in? What has Genius's experience been in targeting a new community, the community of newer citizens, a community of younger citizens, a community of older citizens? They have all those capabilities, but again, the point we've been making all along is, if you want to do those things, you can't be trying to turn an old offensive lineman into a wideout. You have to have the system that has wideouts and slot backs and offensive linemen and running backs and quarterbacks and defensive linemen and linebacker. You have to have a system that has all of those parts, and that's what the Genius system. That's what it does, and that's what it has.
Will this help make our players stars and make them more known? I see people bring up marketing and of the players, and we know that the turnover in the league, sometimes even for the most diehard of fans, can get crisscrossed and wondering who's playing for this year with the 1-year contracts and things like that. Are there ways that we're going to be able to promote our players even more, so even the casual observer knows who's making those plays on the field?
Yeah, it's a great question, Travis. And again, I'd point to that technology having nearly unlimited potential. But you step back from that for a moment, you say, look, there were some structural changes that we made, and this speaks to why the relationship with our Player Association partners was so important. In this last CBA, which is now was a seven-year arrangement, it actually created opportunities for more roster stability. So it created opportunities for guaranteed contracts, as an example. And it was just as an example. It's designed to reward players to stay in their communities longer and be rewarded for that longevity and loyalty. There were, everywhere we've turned, we tried to take these issues that we knew were concerns for our fans, and we tried to turn them into solutions. And the thing is, when you're bargaining with your partners, you don't always agree on everything. And sometimes you have to make compromises. We don't get 100% of what we want, and they don't get 100% of what they want. But that's what bargaining is all about. But we've done some really good things in terms of roster stability. And I think we're starting to see that. You look, if you watch the Bomber game last night, you see a roster that's been held together pretty consistently now for several seasons, and kudos to them. They've done such a good job, and all of our teams are doing a better job of that. But then you go back to technology. Some of the systems that we now have available to us are an ability for our players to use the social media world to tell their story, and to be able to use our highlights and clips to be able to show the fans just some of the big moments that they have in their in game action. So again, Travis, this thing we're talking about is designed at its core to do all of those things. It is about finding ways to reach new audiences, but that's not the old way of reaching them. It's got to be the new way. We look at how far the social media world has come and how important it is in the overall messaging of society. And a lot of what this system is designed to do is allow us access into that social media world and give our players and our teams and our league an opportunity to tell the story better. So again, it's different than it was, but it's way more powerful than anything we've ever had in our past.
I do want to ask you about quarterbacks. It seems to be a discussion among almost everyone across Canada, and I think maybe a lot of the stuff is out of anybody's control. Injuries happen on the field, and some of them, they, it just looks like bad luck. You can't really prevent, some of these ruptured Achilles and things like that. What can the CFL do to attract talented quarterbacks? Lure them away from the other guys and keep them playing in Canada. So we have it's the most they touch the ball every play, and the quarterback teams know that, fans know that. How do we keep these amazing quarterbacks and attract new ones to the CFL?
Well, in fact, Travis, I think you have to take a step back first before we really start the conversation to say, look, we've already doing that. You look at this young quarterback in Ottawa that came up from nothing, came up from nowhere. We didn't know who he was. And he gets an opportunity, and all of a sudden there's an overtime victory, and then there's another huge finish, and this young man is just like shooting the lights out. And he's making us excited. That's been the history of our league going back for many decades, is that somebody has to come out for somebody to go in. And that's when your new stars are born. And we're seeing some of those stories emerge this year, just as we have over the decades. So number one is we shouldn't think that somehow this isn't working. It's working. The question is, how do we make it work better? So that's the conversation that I'd be prepared to have, is, not to suggest that somehow it's a broken system and it's not working at all. It's actually a good system, but it could be better. And this is why what we've done is set the wheels in motion to start an off-season conversation, as we have had in the past with our presidents, our GMs, and our coaches, to say, what are we missing that we could do differently, that we could do more of, that we could, that will serve to, help to develop more, more star quarterbacks to the league. So again, it's a system that has served us well over many decades. We've made changes over time, but I think there's clearly an opportunity to keep pushing the envelope, and that's what we're focused on.
Finally, just a couple more. I want to ask you, maybe if there's going to be an off-season discussion on the operations cap in the CFL. I understand things are emotional. There's a lot of upset fans in Edmonton. 21 home losses in a row, the record that no fan base really wants. And fans and others believe that they should be able to make a change where they want in the football operations cap and not be handcuffed with sort of that financial liability going forward. Is there going to be any room for discussion on this in the off season going forward?
Interestingly enough, there always is. We go into every kind of fall with the idea that we have to review these programs and we have to talk to the teams. So there is a consultation happening right now between our head of football operations, Greg Dick, and all the teams to really kind of seek feedback and solicit input. One of the realities of the implementation of the non-player cap was a massive concern from the Player Association that they were seeing that element of our game growing dramatically. So it was the fastest growing expense category in the league. The size of coaching staffs was growing. The number and the amount of money we spent in that area was growing. And the players, I think, felt, wow, like, we're not seeing the same kind of growth in our own incomes as we're seeing in the non-player football area. And so what we wanted to do was to create an equitable structure so that everyone could do well. And as we grow the league, everyone can do better. One thing I know for sure is as soon as you put a program into place, there's going to be a flaw in it, no matter how hard you try, because again, you're trying to satisfy a lot of different concerns. You're trying to be a responsible partner to the players, for example. You want to show a tremendous respect for our non-player personnel, for our, GMs and our coaches and our scouts and our trainers and our equipment staffs. These are remarkable people. There's not a single one of them that you don't, you'd have any desire to disrespect, but you're trying to walk a fine line. So there's a review underway right now, and there's conversations taking place amongst all the teams to really, kind of to get that feedback. This has been a cornerstone of how we've tried to operate. Is people would tend to think of the league as a single entity decision-making body. It's really not. The league is a place where we gather information from within our teams. We gather information from around the world of sports, and then we analyze all that information, and then we present what we think is an option based on that feedback, and then we seek input from our teams. So again, this isn't a unilateral, we've just kind of done this draconian, we put this draconian program into place. And clearly, I don't want any team disadvantaged in their ability to win football games, not at all. But we have a long-term goal on building something together that works for everyone, that creates that long-term success as a league that everyone wants us, and we've got so much momentum now. You look at putting in place a revenue sharing plan, a 7-year CBA with the player, longest collective bargaining agreement in the league's history, the partnership with Genius, and all of the opportunities that will create. I look at how we operate today. We're almost a completely different business than the one we were 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. But we still have work to do. And so, for every positive step you make, something has to be adjusted when you're all said and done. But again, we're not tone deaf. We certainly know there are those frustrations out there, and we'll do our level best to address them, annually as we are looking at that right now.
I'll ask you just one more question. This year marks the 30th anniversary of Edmonton's 1993 Grey Cup win. What do you remember about that season?
Oh, so many things. Again, for me, I end up almost inevitably, I end up thinking about Coach Lancaster and all that he meant to me. And it was a season that I got hurt. I got hurt. I guess about the midpoint of the season. I'd had a wonky knee at that point. I'd had ACL and MCL reconstructions. And I got hurt playing in Toronto, and was facing the prospect of having surgery and maybe retiring and walking away from the game. And it was Coach Lancaster that encouraged me to stay away from the surgery and focus on rehab, because he in a conversation that I'll never forget, he talked about his view that if I could play, we'd have a real shot at winning the Grey Cup. What an inspiration he was to me and to my teammates. And I'll never be able to repay the kindness that Coach Ron showed me. And then coming back off that injury for me, and we went on a run. We had a lot of success, and then into the playoffs, and that game in Calgary and that snowstorm, that's another unforgettable moment. And then going back to Calgary, sitting in my original locker for my rookie season in '85. Wow. And then when probably the moment, there's two moments candidly that I'll never forget, is on the field after we had won and seeing my family walking onto the field, and my wife Barb and my dad, my three brothers, all walking onto the field. And I just started to cry. Like, it was like, knowing that my mom was at home watching on TV, and my dad and my wife and my brothers were there. You'll never forget that moment, right? Because that's but the one that stands out was being in the locker room at the end, and everyone had left, and I knew I was going to retire, so I didn't want to take off my stuff. So I sat in my locker for a long time, just taking it all in. And it was Coach Lancaster that came out of the coaching area and sat next to me, and we just talked and talked about what we had done together and what we had done with all those remarkable teammates of ours. It's a conversation that I could probably recount almost word for word, because it was that important to me at the time. Again, those are the memories that never leave you. And I'd like to think that I carry a little bit of Coach Ron around with me every day. The way he treated people was quite remarkable, and again, for that, I'll never be able to repay that kindness. And I think about him. I think about him all the time, and the remarkable impact. And then, lastly, your teammates, right?
Yeah.
You can't help but just think about what it's like. You just spend so much time together, and to this day, I've got a wonderful friendship with with Blake Dermott and Rod Conop. I just saw Rod this summer in Edmonton, and there's so many more. And you think, gosh, that those are relationships that you hope will last for the rest of your life.
Those are some special memories. Thank you for sharing that. Now you present the Grey Cup every November, so
yeah,
that's a full circle moment. Commissioner Randy Ambrosie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this week. And hey, good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks very much, and best wishes to you and all of your listeners. And look, we had a lot of great things going on. It's a league on the move, and all of it in the right direction. Best wishes to everybody. Let's have an amazing finish to the 2023 season.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.